Here's to you. What you write is what we do. The words are all by you. Up to you. Imagination is the clue. You know it's up to you. You to us, us to you. Your ideas coming through. Dreams and hopes from envelopes. Some are funny, some are blue. The words are from your heart and hands, so we sing, here's to you.
Woo, okay, let's talk about something a bit lighter this time. In Nickelodeon's earliest years, the cable station turned to the theatrical performative arts as their source for talent hires. Musicians, puppeteers, mimes, a guy who tours talking really fast, a guy who tours making realistic sound effects with his mouth. So it was only a matter of time before Nick just up and hired an entire touring theater troupe and broadcast their show with only minimal alteration.
What are you doing?
I can't remember.
Well, are you a real robber?
Yeah, that's it.
Are you robbing us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Kids' Rights premiered in December of 1981. For a long time, it was thought to have premiered in 1982, probably due to the 1982 copyright, but I found TV listings that put it in the last few weeks of December, barely making the deadline, but still technically being an 81 show for our purposes. December was quickly becoming Nickelodeon's go-to time to premiere new content. Both Special Delivery and Reggie Jackson's World of Sports had December premieres. Kids' Rights involved a group of 5 performers, 4 men, 1 woman, who performed stories, plays, poetry, and songs written and sent in by kids between the ages of 5 and 13. They would be performed on a stage of elevated platforms, some metal banisters, and a few ropes hanging off the ceiling. No props, except for a few musical instruments, just a lot of miming, mugging, and singing to translate these stories to television.
Once I saw a mouse with no tail. He squeaked around all day. He was happy that he had no tail because his friends that did have tails tripped over theirs, but not the mouse with no tail. The end.
Each episode opens with a bit of a misleading scene where they ask a group of kids what animal they would like to see, which the performers would then contort their bodies to replicate.
What kind of animal would you like?
Could you please make me a rabbit?
Yes, adult joke, get your laughs in. However, this is not representative of the rest of the show. None of this was performed in front of a live audience, though they do throw in some canned laughter or applause at the end of each segment. Nothing outside of that animal bit is improvised. This isn't a children's version of Whose Line Is It Anyway, as awesome of an idea as that sounds. These are clearly rehearsed performances with multiple takes and dubbed in music, which is fine, just a different kind of show than what the opening implies.
I went to the circus today. I laughed at the clown parade. I saw the big top, I just couldn't stop, laughing my way through the day. I went to the circus today, I laughed at the clown's hooray. I saw the big top, I just couldn't stop, laughing my way through the day.
When I learned about this show, I initially approached it with a bit of skepticism, as the idea of performing things children sent in would be incredibly easy to fake. You write your own scripts, make up a kid to credit it to, take some pictures of the producer's kids, easy peasy. But if they did that, they got some really talented child psychologists to write for them, because you can definitely feel the young person behind the words being spoken. There are songs that sound like a kid's first attempt to write a song, just nonsense.
You wake up in the morning and you get undressed. You go downstairs and you take a little rest. You go outside and you find a rock. You look inside and there's a lock. You lock it back up and you close the door. And that's all there is, there ain't no more. And that's all there is, there ain't no more.
There are segments that get into childhood worries and anxieties, but written by someone too young to know how to express those worries and anxieties.
One night, when I got in my bed, when I was sleeping, I did not have one single dream. I thought I could sleep without dreams, and I could.
And there are stories that follow no sense of logic, no idea behind its imagery, just pure childhood id.
I fell into the tree. I saw tiny little purple men, and they said, I knew the language, so I said, Homagotcha, back to them. It means peace to you. They made me drink an awful drink. I died.
So, yeah, I believe the show is being honest with its premise. Reportedly, 300 stories were selected from a pool of 8,000 and were performed over one 17-episode season. The Kids' Rights crew was made up by Wynn White, Carlo Grossman, Steve Rifkin, and Michael Eisner. I mean, look at him. That's Michael Eisner. You can't tell me that's not the former CEO of the Walt Disney Company. Okay, his name is actually John Russo, I guess. And we also have the show's director, lead musician, and credited creator, Jim Mayers. You know he's in charge because he gets to wear normal clothes and not a patchwork jumpsuit. As I implied at the beginning, the Kids' Rights crew was a pre-existing theater troupe called the Magic Carpet Band, which was a challenge to research as there's an actual band called Magic Carpet. Jim Mayers founded the Magic Carpet Band in 1972, originally designed as a children's theater program for Hidden Valley music seminars in Carmel Valley, California. To prepare for the project, Mayers spent 6 weeks sitting in during kindergarten classes, learning what young children like and respond to, and in the process discovered just how imaginative 5-year-olds can be. At first, the Magic Carpet Band performed fairy tale parodies called Fractured Fairy Tales, but after Mayers brought in 6 pieces written by those kindergarten kids, the Kids' Rights show was developed. And Mayers wasn't going to half-ass it. He had every intention of creating something both entertaining and respectful to children. There is a national young people's theater in Russia that is absolutely wonderful. They spend fantastic money on it. There are professionals that work for 50 years in young people's theater there because it is a dignified, respected profession. And in this country, mainly because of the financial structure, people can't continue to work in children's theater because they can't make a living. So what it tends to be is amateur night. And this country really deserves a national theater. But the variation that I would suggest is that there should be a national young writers theater. The idea of kids' rights that has grown up. I would love to see a theater where every year of production was written by kids, for kids, staged by professionals with adequate budgets to stage them the way they should be. Kids can write for kids better than adults can. This is a fact. There's no place for young people to write or have their work appreciated. The Magic Carpet Band started off as a much larger group, as many as 12 performers at one point, including a lot more women, but the style of performance never changed. As you can see from this 1976 footage, it was always about empty stages and invisible props.
One day, a girl decided to join baseball.
And no one would let her play.
So, one day, a team picked her. Okay. All the way, Judy, baby, yeah. Her team went all the way to the finals. The game was tied, 1-1, and the girl was up.
Unfortunately, children's theater isn't exactly a lucrative business, and the Magic Carpet Band closed up shop sometime in the late 70s. That is until 1981, when Mayors got some of the band back together to create a television version of Kids' Rights. How that came to be isn't documented, but there is another name in the credits worth checking out. Series producer and second director Christopher Sarson, a Cambridge-educated British expat who came to the States in 1963 to work for television, eventually finding a home in PBS. In 1971, Sarson became the executive producer and one of the creators of Masterpiece Theatre, a drama anthology series consisting mostly of British imports like I, Claudius, Upstairs Downstairs, and The Six Wives of Henry VIII. If you're like me, you know it more as that thing Cookie Monster was spoofing on Sesame Street. In 1972, Sarson would kick off a second show for PBS aimed for a much younger audience called Zoom.
Come on and zoom, 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 zoom. You gotta zoom, 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 zoom. Everybody's doing it, everybody's moving it, everybody's having a ball, yeah. So won't you zoom, 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 zoom. Come on and zoom, 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 zoom.
So stop me if you've heard this one. A kids show where a bunch of performers on a minimalist set perform things sent in by children. The only major conceptual difference between Zoom and Kids' Rights was the age of the performers, though in practice Zoom was a more curated show, more inspired by viewer submissions and less beholden to the letter of them. Sarson worked on Zoom's first 3 seasons before calling it quits, moving on to produce Live from the Met, PBS airings of performances of the Metropolitan Opera. He'd leave that show in 1979. So, what follows is speculation, but this is how I imagine Kids' Rights on Nickelodeon came to be. Cy Snyder's looking to expand Nickelodeon's edutainment image, continuing to expand its PBS you pay for idea, even going so far as to buying the broadcast rights to canceled PBS programs. Hey, Schneider thinks, Zoom was a pretty popular program. Can we get that? No. What about the guy who created it, Christopher Sarson? Is he working on anything right now? He's between shows? Great, get him on the phone. Ring ring! Sarson, baby, it's Cy Schneider. You know, the guy who did all those Mattel commercials? Don't hang up. Listen, I have this children's cable station called Nickelodeon. We're putting up a lot of PBS-type shows. We even have this Masterpiece Theatre show called Children's Classics. And I was wondering if you... Yeah, it's a good idea. Anyway, I was wondering if you wanted to produce a show for us. I was thinking of having our own version of Zoom. You know, dancing, singing, based on what kids write in. How much? Enough for you to say yes. No, we don't have any performers in mind. Kind of hoping you would bring that together. Cool? Alright, glad to be working with you. Now, Sarson is a fan of theater, and it's very possible that he had heard of the Magic Carpet Band and Kids' Rights. Heck, I bet he checked them out just to make sure there was no intellectual property conflict between them and Zoom. So Sarson rings Mayors up, and Mayors turns on the magic carpet signal. I don't know if Mayors handpicked these four or if these were the only ones willing to come back, but the Magic Carpet Band officially reformed and Sarson brought them over to Nickelodeon. At least that's what I think most likely happened. Maybe Schneider picked out the Magic Carpet Band, maybe Mayors suggested Sarson, I can't say for sure. All I have is the end product, which is pretty good. It doesn't quite have the energy or fun of Zoom, but there is an advantage in having this kind of program led by adult professionals. The Magic Carpet Band brought a level of talent and experience that even the best 10-year-old child actors couldn't deliver on. They're all really good theatrical performers with bright facial expressions and just the right amount of exaggerated gesture. And they were genuine in what they wanted to create. There's no talking down to children, no wink at the camera to say, yes, I am a grown man with giant hair and a big mustache talking about what I want to be when I grow up, and that's silly. There's a clear respect for the material submitted.
Sometimes, when I'm alone, I think I'm going to grow up to be someone very important. My mom thinks so too, but I can't imagine who. I love my mom. All the boys on my block say, but I know they love their moms too.
I have to imagine how blown away I'd be if I had been one of the kids who got their story read on the air. As an adult today, I greatly respect the craft that went into the performances and how big of a heart this show had. But let's be real here. Kids' Rights was not a headliner. It was a B-list show from conception. Children are not entertainment screenwriters, and while the show clearly picked out the best of their submissions and did the best work they could with them, 8-year-old Lori Ann Young from Wichita, Kansas doesn't exactly know structure or pacing or payoff.
But I couldn't find anything to put him in.
So he died.
There he lay on his back while I cried, "Fishy, fishy, come alive! Fishy, fishy, come alive! Fishy, fishy, come alive!"
And he sat up and said, "I am alive." And then he said, "The end."
I imagine the main source of Kids' Rights' appeal on a general young person audience wasn't the actual performances, but the power fantasy kids had of submitting their writing and watching grown-ups perform it. Not that they ever got a chance, because only one season of Kids' Rights was produced, and that was all the stuff they commissioned before the show was on the air. Why it was only one season is not documented, but I imagine having a much more successful show that was also a bit like Zoom had something to do with it. Not that that stopped Nickelodeon from milking the show for all it was worth. Reruns ran until 1987, making it one of the longer-lasting Nickelodeon originals from this period, managing to out-survive Livewire, Reggie Jackson's World of Sports, and half a dozen future shows we've yet to cover. With only 17 episodes, I have to imagine each rotation was met with diminishing returns. It wouldn't have that renewed audience thing that larger shows like Pinwheel could rely on. You would have the same kids finally getting bored with the umpteenth time they watched the Kicking Machine sketch. But, on the other hand, maybe that didn't matter. Kids' Rights was a minor show, but it was a comfy show. Less suited for kids rushing home from school to catch the newest episode, and more suited for kids bored on a lazy Sunday with nothing else to watch. It's perfect, it'll do television. With a boost in name brand recognition, the Magic Carpet Band took Kids' Rights on the road, bringing the stage show to Washington, D.C., Toronto, and Vancouver. Los Angeles, London, and Nova Scotia were also being considered, though I can't confirm if they actually managed to get there. What I do know is that the touring life was hard on the troupe, and the Magic Carpet Band officially disbanded in 1986. This time, for good. Everybody got tired of getting by on $300 a week and living out of a suitcase. The only member of the Magic Carpet Band whose post-Kids' Rights career I've been able to track down is John Russo. He remained active in theater, writing, acting, directing, and eventually becoming the technical director for the Pacific Repertory Theater in Carmel, California. He directed performances of Fiddler on the Roof and The Elephant Man. He played Macbeth and Falstaff. He adapted Mr. Toad's Wild Ride for the stage. He was committed to the theater. Theater allows me to live an honest philosophy in my life and share it with others. Honest feelings move people in whatever way. And if they're not being moved, the performance has not been honest. If you're not being honest with yourself, it's not fair to the audience or to other actors. Russo sadly passed away in 2012 at the age of 64. Kids' Rights was a fine program, if a bit cheap and insubstantial. It sort of fit into Nickelodeon's eventual by kids for kids mantra, but I think it's something that can be more appreciated as an adult than as the intended target audience. The Magic Carpet Band was clearly talented and had a ton of heart, but the second the show stopped accepting submissions, it lost a lot of its appeal. And that's okay. It's okay to be of the moment. Not everything needs to rock the world or last forever. Sometimes you're just in the mood for a light snack. And you could snack on a lot worse than this show.
My friends, I saw it in my life. That feelings are what I have, and nothing can take feelings from me. Please, people, can't you see? Please, people, can't you see? Feelings are the world to me. Feelings are the world to me. We have one life to live and to live it right. Feelings are the world to me. Feelings are the world to me, to make things work out right. I saw it in my friend.
Next time, Nickelodeon goes sci-fi. British sci-fi. The best sci-fi there is, some might say. Today's shout-out goes to the PBS Companion, A History of Public Television by David Stewart. A solid book on PBS in general, and one that goes into details on Christopher Sarson's career with the station, though more focused on the Masterpiece Theater stuff than the Zoom stuff. You might notice that I stopped doing the 2 episodes one right after the other thing. I'm finding less time to do 2 videos in parallel, but the trade-off here is that there's going to be more episodes of Knacks per month. So you're not going to be waiting till September for the Tomorrow People. If you'd like to see me free up more time to work on Knacks, consider contributing to my Patreon. Every dollar gets me a step closer to making this show more substantial. You can also follow me on Twitter, like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe, hit that bell, and then don't trust any of it because YouTube refuses to make sense. Every little bit helps beat the algorithm. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.